All right. Let's roll. It's time to fight the final boss, everybody. Let's save before we go in. The whole series have been leading up to this. Let's hope we don't lose. It's time to beat Maester Seymour. I hate this guy. Can't stand him. See what he has to say. I'm gonna eat my salad while we watch this. Hi CCP bot number 69420. That's a good username. Hello, Blake. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. All right. I have no idea how this boss fight works. We'll figure it out, though. Let's see. Starting with Oren. Should we just hit him to start? All right, that seemed to work. I just don't know what the deal is with the little circular things. Okay. We need to get Stalin in here at some point. Pretty good. What about you? Thank you. They look sick, though. What looks sick? Those things, they do look sick. I agree. Did you hear the news out of here in Tennessee about the union? I don't think so. What news? Inform me, Blake. How's the sound, by the way? Is that too loud? Let me turn it down a bit. It seems a bit loud. Let me know how it is in the chat, please. So let's go. What do we got to do here? Let's do that. No, we got to get Joseph Stalin in. Sounds perfect in my opinion. What, your username? All right, let's get everybody sped up. Get everybody on speed, as they say. Hopefully do this too. Immune, never mind. LOL, thanks. If you're a CCP bot, do you like all of my content, and Jackson Hinkle's content? Because according to the New York Times, it's all just bots. We're just, rising to prominence off of anger about Palestine and bots. It couldn't be that people are genuinely tired of the establishment and turning to ideologies like Marxism, Leninism that advocate for class struggle and overthrowing the existing ruling class. It couldn't be that. It's just bots. It's all bots. Let's do this. It's all CCP bot number 69420. It's all him. He's every one of my followers, actually. Little known fact. All right, so reflect actually worked. That's cool. So let's go attack. Then let's go cures. Let's do another reflect right away. Can confirm. Yes, true. I actually hired CCP bot number 69420. I hired him with the money that Vladimir Putin Venmoed to my bank account, allegedly. Just kidding, of course. For Putin puppets, everyone at Midwestern Marx is pretty poor. Oh, I can't. When I have reflect on, I can't use spells on myself either. Uh-oh, I have a feeling he's about to do some insane attack and just kill me. What's going on here? Oh, he used a spell. That's not too bad. I guess I'm CCP bot number 69421. Yes, we all are. The United Auto Workers want a union vote in Volkswagen factory chat. Oh, I did hear about that. Kyle Pettis told us about that. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Are you from the Tennessee area, or were you a part of that at all? Yeah, that's huge news. We're continuing to see a wave of unionization efforts and strikes and all sorts of union organizing going on across the country, which of course is a valuable form of class struggle, and one that's been cracked down on by the ruling class. I mean, there was tons of labor organizing after the Great Depression. Obviously, people were tired of capitalism. Uh-oh. Well, we lived for now. Nah, we lived. Let's go. I did not know if we were going to live that. Oh, I got to cast haste again. I'm stupid. But then there were acts like the Taft-Hartley. Well, sorry. And then in 1945, after World War II, people wanted to keep all those jobs that were created by the war. So after that, during that period, like 1945 to 1950, you had more wildcat strikes than at any other point in American history. Wildcat strikes being where workers just walk out. They say, we're done with this. We're going to walk out until we get what we want or get better conditions. So there was a huge crackdown then on labor organizing, and that's continued since, Ronald Reagan with neoliberalism. Organized labor has been crushed in many ways by the state. And now we're seeing the counter reaction to that. We're seeing more class struggle from the bottom up. We're seeing labor leaders like Shawn Fain and Chris Smalls, who are far more radical in their rhetoric. Chris Smalls is, of course, not like an industrial union leader. He was the person who organized the first Amazon, but still, that's an important part of the working masses in America today. Are the I don't even know if Amazon would be service industry because it's in the process of circulation. So I don't know. Either way, it's a very important company today, Amazon, and a very important workforce that Chris Smalls organized. And he's anti-imperialist. He sounds like a Marxist-Leninist. He visited Cuba and discussed the Cuban Revolution. He showed up at Columbia University to stand with Palestine. Like, we're seeing a huge elevation of the consciousness of American labor, and a lot of just very basic organizing efforts in terms of forming unions and getting more active in the unions. Like Chris Small, it's logistics and transport. Yeah, right. Which is part of the sphere of circulation, which is extremely important to the entire circulation of capital. Especially today, companies like Amazon really speed up the pace of circulation and the amount of surplus value that other capitalists can get off of their commodities, because it's easier to realize that capital through a sale on Amazon, or Amazon makes it easier for them to sell, which is the realization of their capital and the realization of the value that they've exploited from workers, which is stored in the form of commodities. So yeah, I don't know. It's great to see. And I know Midwestern Marx fans, or followers of Midwestern Marx, at least on TikTok, were part of the first organizing effort at Amazon. Some of the workers who helped organize that were Midwestern Marx people. So that's pretty awesome to know for me. And to know that, people are watching our work and then actually going and organizing their workplaces and organizing their communities. which is what it's all about, folks. What's this? Health. Let's take it. Yes, HP. We need it. Give me HP. Give me whatever this is. Hold on, y'all. I forgot to grab water. I will catch up with the chat as soon as I get back. I will answer all your chat questions as soon as I grab a drink of water. Be back in like 2 seconds. I'm coming. I'm coming back. Daddy's back. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say things like that. Not data center workers, but the service workers of the AWS service that Amazon provides for Google, Microsoft, etc. I'm not sure if I understand the point you're making, Landrazel. But yeah, definitely, I don't know if you would call Amazon service work. I think you would call it transport, which I think is something you said earlier. Not daddy's back. I should have said daddy's home. Hey, Eddie, one of my professors calls himself a Hegelian Marxist, but is hypercritical of, Stalin, and openly calls the MAGA movement fascist. How can I push him closer to embracing Stalin's ideas and the working people who are tied into the MAGA movement? I mean, it's going to be hard. A lot of these academics have a super liberal or a super academic consciousness, and they're older and they're set in their ways, and a lot of them aren't open to learning from their students. One of them, I've tweeted this recently, that one of the most radicalizing experiences for me was when I was in college and Carlos and I were working on the Bernie campaign. And we would talk to these professors who we admired, who we respected, who we thought were smart, who had given us all these lectures about social justice and, achieving justice in the world and in politics. And they were all voting for Joe Biden over Bernie. They wouldn't even vote for the guy who was, going to give people universal health care and try to alleviate some of the student debt crisis in this country. They wouldn't even let us have that guy, or these academics who talked about social justice and who praised Martin Luther King and, all these American heroes all day. They couldn't stand up against Genocide Joe and vote for a guy who wanted to give people health care because they see the MAGA movement as fascist, right? And they truly see Republican workers and MAGA workers as like a basket of deplorables or, violent psychopaths who need to be stopped. And it's because they have no interaction. I mean, really, it's most of them have no interaction with the working class. They live, in their ivory tower. Their friends are other professors. They, are a lot of the times the people pushing like DEI stuff, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And anybody who doesn't buy into that paradigm or have the same sort of PC language and way of speaking, these academics will write off as or not even want to associate with or call racist. And that's why we root ourselves in the proletariat, right? That's why we root ourselves in the working class. And that's why Lenin said that academics see themselves as the prize of the country or the brains of the country, but really they're the shit of the country. That's a straight up quote. So all you can really do is study Stalin yourself and study his legacy and, actually dig into the Soviet archives and read people like Grover Furr, who have spent a lot of time in the Soviet archives, to to actually understand it so that you can better explain it to people or debunk myths about him. But yeah, I don't know if there's any hope for your professor at this point. What are Sean Fain's politics? His rhetoric sounds anti-capitalist, but isn't he cozied up to Biden and endorsed him? Yeah, he endorsed Biden. I mean, that's minor. It's not good, right? I don't agree with it, but what's more important when it comes to the unions is what they're doing in the workplace. What they're organizing against the bosses themselves. It does matter what they say politically, and we would like the unions to be more, more like Chris Smalls, where they're talking about, anti-imperialism and the connection between imperialism and and exploitation and capitalism. But, nah, it's just not reality. Not every labor leader is going to be there right now. So Sean Fain's rhetoric when it comes to the workers is really good, right? He sounds like the Leninist, but then he'll do things like endorse Biden. It's like, he's not perfect, but Eddie, but the only way you can be critical of Stalin is if you buy into the Khrushchevite's historical nihilism. This documentary from China on historical nihilism might be a good resource to push back. Yeah, there you go. There's a good resource about Stalin. Like I said, all you can really do is study Stalin and study the lies about him so that you can push back on them. Yeah, but Amazon isn't just warehouses. The moneymaker for Amazon is Amazon's web services. Right. So that's the realization of capital. That's the sale of capital. That's taking the products to market and allowing them to be realized, which speeds up the process of circulation. It speeds up how fast other capitalists creating the commodities that are being sold on Amazon. It speeds up how quickly they're able to realize their capital and make surplus value. Why is this thing so tough? I've about had it with this thing. Oh, there we go. Stop using Doom. All right, he's dead. Yo, Eddie, will you finish your reading guide on origins? Your guides on imperialism and Satan were instrumental in my radicalization. I share them with liberals all the time. Thank you. It's great to hear that. Yeah, I need to finish it. It hasn't been on my mind lately, but I will finish it. It was hard because I was also doing a book club at the same time that I was finishing that I was doing that reading guide. So I would teach the book for the book club and then do my reading guide. Then I just kind of fell off. So I've taught that book like twice now and read it like 3 times. And, I just wasn't in the mood after teaching the book for a book club. I wasn't in the mood to, do another full reading guide and breakdown, but I should get back on it because those videos are the videos that are maybe, I think that I've always said this, they're probably the videos that I think are the most important, the videos I put out that are the most important because there are so many people today who, want to read theory, but they don't have time or feel that they don't have the attention spans or don't know where to start, don't feel like it's understandable at first. And in those books, in those reading guides, I break it down and explain it and try to update the analysis of Lenin and Marx for modern day. So I don't know. I just think it's really important in comparison to a lot of the other videos that we've done, at least, because it'll be really helpful for people understanding core works of ML theory. Yo, Eddie, will you? Oh, I already read that one, though. Moneymaker is a bit of a misnomer. He just gets tons of financing. It's really weird, though, because he assigned Parenti as one of our readings, so I thought he'd be more based. He also likes Althusser, which I'm kind of iffy on. I had too much hope for him. Althusser isn't bad. Althusser wrote a lot of good stuff, and you have to keep in mind a lot of the French theorists who were inspired by Althusser. They are, the French theorists that Gabriel Rockhill talks about and shows that they're CIA funded and stuff like that. They were inspired by Althusser, but they didn't start being like anti-USSR and really anti-socialist till like the 1960s and later on. And these were the people who were influenced by Althusser, but Althusser himself was pro-socialist and pro-Soviet Union, and he did have really good analyses, like his analysis of the state, right? He said Marxists haven't fully fleshed out their analysis of the state much or enough. It is a dictatorship of the ruling class. But in addition to that, you have different kinds of repressive state apparatuses. You have ideological state apparatuses like, the education system and the media. And then you have directly repressive state apparatuses like the police and the military. And, these are good analyses. So I don't hate Althusser. He has this really weird idea that there's a break in Marx. There's a difference between the young Marx and the old Marx. I think that's pretty stupid. Marx is just a human, was just a human being like anyone else who learned and developed as he got older. There's not a hard break between, new Marx and old Marx. It's just Marx. And, as Marx got older, he learned more and refined his analysis and refined his position. But either way, I'm not much of an Althusser hater, even though he strangled his wife and inspired a bunch of really terrible French theory. That makes him sound pretty bad, but his theory wasn't the worst compared to other French theorists, or the French theorists who were inspired by him. What else was I gonna say? But yeah, it's interesting that he assigned Parenti, but then was not that based. Surprising. I didn't know there was, there were non-tankies who liked Parenti. Usually, you just read Black Shirts and Reds, and that's it. You're tanky for life. Althusser's writings on Lenin are good, but I haven't gotten much into his other writings. Yeah, American just has such a poor reading level, including me. A few years ago, I've gotten a lot better, but it's still hard for a lot of people to read and understand a book written over 100 years ago. Your guides are very well made, especially with how you always connect stuff to current events. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad they were helpful. And yeah, it's tough. Our reading level is low. And yeah, when you read stuff that's from a long time ago, it's written, in a different way. They had a different way of speaking back then. Things have changed linguistically, so that can be difficult. Marx and Engels are often referencing these guys like Robert Owen and David Ricardo and Adam Smith and Robert Thomas Malthus. And as you read their work, and Proudhon and other people, and as you read their work, you begin to learn who these people are and what they thought, how their thought was different to Marx and Engels. But at first it can be difficult. At first you're like, who are these guys? I'll never forget, I gave my buddy a copy of Socialism, Utopian, and Scientific. And Marx and Engels in that book were talking about a guy named Bacon. And just as a joke, next to his name in the book, I wrote yum, like yummy bacon. And my friend got really confused by it. He's like, I couldn't figure out for the rest of the book if bacon was a guy or if they were talking about bacon the food, because you wrote yum next to it. So there's an example. This guy is quite good. Fidel Castro is quite good, even though he's about to die. I should have brought in someone else. I didn't really want him to die, but I'm volunteering for a man trying to oust my local state house representative, Jerry Faison, who also happens to be the leader of the Republican caucus. The guy's a liberal, but we need to oust the Republican supermajority, so Well, I just hope the man who you're volunteering for is worth your time, because they aren't always, even though they're, maybe the lesser of two evils. A lot of the times, when it's a Democrat or something, you end up being super disappointed with it, but you know better than me. You're working with the guy. I just hope he's worth your time and effort, because we have limited time and effort on this earth. Same. I don't know if you know Jeremy Faison, but he's a fascist dick. No, I don't know him at all. I believe you though. Just be glad you're not reading it in Old English. True. We could be like reading, medieval theory. We're lucky Marx and Engels came about when they did in the late 1800s. We're not lucky. They came about because of the material conditions of the Industrial Revolution and developing capitalism allowed for them to come about and make this analysis of capitalism in its more developed form that David Ricardo and Adam Smith never got to see. But that's neither here nor there. That's just dialectical materialism. Ever heard of it? Why'd that do 0 damage? Sometimes he just does 0 damage and I don't even get why. Might as well bring in someone else. Uh-oh. Oh, they're fighting each other. The girls are fighting. Guys, stop hitting each other. Uh-oh, we might die here. This isn't good. Guys, stop it! This is so freaking annoying. Oh my gosh, we're gonna lose because of that? That is so stupid. What am I supposed to do there? They all got confused. Just kill me. That was so freaking dumb. That didn't even feel fair. That just felt cheap. At least it auto-saved for me. No, I'm way back here. I hate this game, dude. Sometimes these games are just straight up annoying. I would probably rage quit if I wasn't streaming right now. I definitely would. I'd be like, screw that. I'm playing again later. But we barely made it anywhere. Well, I guess we did beat the one boss already today. But I've been saying that I'm going to beat the game for like the last 3 episodes, and then this final level just keeps going on and on and on. I guess not yet. Capitalism made the game you're playing, but how do you thank capitalism for once? Go on, do it. Why don't you thank the workers for once, dumbass? Capitalism didn't make the game, the working class did with their labor. And guess what? The gaming industry workers are hyper exploited, and the gaming industry has gotten really shitty and started moving towards a hyper obsession with microtransactions because of capitalism. So now these games are riddled with paywalls, and you have tons and tons and tons of awesome games that are being produced by indie developers without any money because they don't want to be attached to these capitalist game studios that just ruin game design by alienating the workers from their labor and forcing them to fill the game with microtransactions and, just suck every last dollar they can out of the kids. So no, I'm not going to thank capitalism for that. That's not a good thing. You should thank the workers for the games that you like. You should thank the workers for the computer that you're watching this on right now. Because everything that we have in this society is produced by labor. It's produced under capitalist relations of production, sure. But at this stage in society's development, capitalist relations of production act as a fetter on production, right? They make game production worse. Whereas under socialism, you could have developers spending more times on the games and actually trying to put out quality games rather than putting out games that are going to make kids take their parents' credit card and buy the battle pass. So I'm sorry to tell you, my friend, you just got destroyed. Like that was just embarrassing for you in every way. Eddie, I feel like Lenin's critique on leftism can still be applied to today, with the concept of leftism being adopted to the time as well. Of course, I assume you've read Leftism, the childish sickness of communism from him. Yeah, I mean, it's leftism and infantile disorder. Or that's what that's what it translates to in the U.S. Left-wing communism and infantile disorder. Sorry, I'm trying to do something right now. But yeah, I agree 100%. It's one of the most relevant books. And it's really interesting too to read about these left comms. You know, the people who Lenin is saying have an infantile disorder. All right, we're gonna time that guy out. The people who Lenin's saying have an infantile disorder. It's crazy how similar they are to the leftists of today, right? Sometimes you read Lenin and you read the critiques that he's making of leftists and the Mensheviks and the reformists and, you know, the people of his day, and it's like, wow, nothing has changed. We're still split into the same groups. You still have the same people. You know, you have the Mensheviks, the reformists. You have the same kind of anarchists. You have these same leftists, like, you know, I'm sure they weren't as annoying and weird as like Vaush and Destiny and the streamer leftists of today, but they were saying very similar stuff. They were making the same arguments. And Lenin and the Bolsheviks won out. They gained the support of the people. You know, you have like Mensheviks demanding democracy and saying the Bolsheviks were bad because they didn't want democracy, and then, you know, running the government like a dictatorship essentially when they got the power. It's the same as, you know, social democrats today, reformist Marxists, who call China and, you know, these Marxist-Leninist countries dictatorships, and call the U.S. and their allies in Europe liberal democracies. You know, these are democratic countries. You know, Iran and Russia, and well, those aren't communist countries or socialist countries, but, you know, Venezuela and Cuba, and then they're dictatorships. I'm a Marxist though. Like, it's the same shit just years later. And it's kind of crazy, I think, anyways. With capitalist perversion and pornography, you would have people like Vaush and Destiny in the USSR. Yeah, that's true. That's what that's brought about by. Right. That's kind of what I was referencing is, you know, now the Mensheviks are on Twitch and they live in this, or the leftists are on Twitch and they live in this hyper capitalist, hyper individualist society where they make a lot of money, you know, by preaching socialism and Marxism, as they call it. So that leads to these just really insufferable personalities, these arrogant rich guys from Beverly Hills who are claiming to be socialists and fight for the working class while, you know, actually perverting what socialism socialism is, and confusing what socialism is, and throwing dirt on existing socialist countries and people who are actually struggling for socialism. Yeah, also in Lenin's time, you didn't have any other socialist countries. The USSR was the first socialist experiment, so you didn't have this phenomena of Western leftists, you know, looking at actual socialist countries and being like, no, that's not real socialism. Says me, the American socialist from the heart of the empire, completely unable to organize anything of my own. I'm going to condemn the socialists who actually have state power and who actually are bringing people out of poverty. Like, that wasn't a phenomena during Lenin's time. You have the anarchists, you know, who are like, no, this is bad. This is bad. You know, the Bolsheviks are evil dictators. They're seizing power of the government. We should just wait around and wait for the revolution to pop out of nowhere, to come straight out of our asses, right? You have people like that, but you didn't have people, because there weren't any existing socialist countries to condemn. So that's one place where I think Lenin's analysis really could be updated, you know, is say in the modern day, especially on the Western left. You can tell a leftist from a communist by how they talk about existing socialist countries. whether they poo-poo them or whether they give them critical support. And in the modern day, you can tell if people are liberals by the amount of cartoon horse porn that they watch. I'm sorry. I had to make one Vaush reference. It just had to happen. So I'm sorry you all had to hear that and think about Vaush in his consumption habits, if you can call it that. Use up all my potions. Gotta be getting to the end here, huh? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, is this thing gonna kill me again? Let's hope not. Last time it killed me indeed. Actually, I wonder if I can do this. Try it. Worth a shot. Why does he do 0 damage? No, it didn't work. Now we're hitting ourselves again. Now we're okay. How do I fix this? I know what I should do. Let's just summon Fidel Castro to handle this for us. Anarchists are just liberals who got attention one too many times. True. There's also like an anarchist to fascist pipeline. It's weird. Yeah. The more you learn about anarchism and work with anarchists, the more I feel like you realize that left unity is not what we need. We need class unity. We need the working class and all aspects of the working masses to be organized and working together. Right. And I think, that includes like the industrial proletariat and, service workers and like Amazon workers and all different parts of the economy. Right. We should try to promote unity amongst them. But we don't need unity amongst Marxist Leninists and anarchists. Anarchists are just like hyper individualistic, usually college students or people with, severe activist brain, with no realistic plan for improving conditions for the workers who, no offense, just get in the way, of doing serious work and doing what needs to be done to improve the conditions and the lives of the working masses. I mean, and anarchists also make the movement appear really childish just with their thinking. And this saying, we need to have a revolution, but one that's not authoritarian. Right? Like, okay, what does that mean? What does that actually mean? You need to, seize authority for the workers and, use state power to suppress the previous economic ruling class, the capitalists, or they're going to try and kill you. Or they are going to try and kill you, and if you don't do things to fight back, if you don't have a socialist police force and, if Cuba didn't have a socialist intelligence agency, Fidel Castro would have been killed on day one. But instead, they thwarted 500 attacks or assassination attempts. And the same thing goes for like the Stasi and the KGB. And that's not to say everything they did was quote unquote good or, they were super ethical. I don't think anyone's arguing that, or that they were always ethical, I should say. But they were necessary because, the Stasi and the KGB were used to counter the CIA. Just like we have U.S. intelligence agencies that are focused on, they say they're focused on defense, but usually they're actually focused on regime change and imperialism. Russia and Cuba and the DPRK, they need intelligence agencies to counter ours, counter the infiltration attempts. And that's how, Cuba saved Fidel's life. So this idea that we need revolution without authority is just so ludicrous and childish and not based on history or a real understanding of history or even a real understanding of the state. And that's why Engels debunked anarchism in like 5 minutes in his famous book On Authority. Uh-oh. That hurt. This guy's got some health, doesn't he? I wonder if there's a way I can speed this process up. Try armor break. Oh, I haven't done armor break yet? I'm stupid. Can I do it? Do I have to keep doing it? Ouch. Did I break this dude's armor yet? Let's call in Fidel Castro to finish this off. There's a lot of anarchists here. Oh, you're in Iowa? That's cool. Sorry. Bausch's face is in the dictionary next to underage anime horse girls. There you go. It should be on Prol Wiki, except Prol Wiki sucks, and the people who run it are stupid ultras who do nothing but fight on Twitter with actual communists all day. Greetings from an Algerian comrade. Love your work, guys. Thank you. Greetings from Iowa. I love hearing from people around the world. That's super cool that you're tuning into the stream from Algeria. Greetings. And everybody watch the Battle of Algiers, one of the greatest movies ever made. Oh, we're about to murder this boy. What is this? Is it Zanpato? Is this a reference to Bleach? Oh, I cut that bitch in half. That was awesome. That was one of the coolest things I've seen in this game. More health for Orin. He's just getting overpowered. More health for Yuna. I'll always take more health. Could always use it. Shoot, I gotta pee, y'all. Let me catch up on the chat, then I'll go pee. Ultimately, anarchists seem to support whatever the United States supports. Sometimes. Or they just, are contrarians. But the revolution is itself authoritarian. Yeah, in a way. It's the seizure of authority from the ruling economic class by the workers. Agreed. There's a lot of anarchists in Iowa, but at least they do some good mutual aid work sometimes. There's also affiliated with SRA in Iowa, but I'm not too familiar with what they do there. Yeah, when in, mutual aid, and if there's a chance for Marxist-Leninists to contribute or to collaborate with anarchist organizations in a way where the anarchist organizations can help the ML organizations, like actually help them, then I, think that's good with like community organizing and stuff. And there are also different kinds of anarchists, like the Zapatistas were considered anarchists in Mexico, but they were like greatly inspired by the Bolsheviks and supported the USSR and, said that their struggle was, greatly inspired by the workers in Russia. And, they supported the workers' state. So that, could have shown a lack of theory amongst the Zapatistas at the time. But, it also shows that there are different kinds of anarchists. How many books do you read in a year on average? I don't know. Last year, it depends on like the years I've read Capitals volume 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, that takes a lot of time. I'm reading Capital volume 3 now, so it's like a chapter a day. But last year, I probably read in between like 20 and 30. I read like the collected works of Parenti last year. I read like 7 or 8 different books on Palestine. I read a book about healthcare. Yeah, I'd say 20 to 30. Good question. Most anarchists I've seen have been pro-Palestine, but other than that, pretty State Department. Yeah. And you know, when there's areas of solidarity like that, obviously, I'm not saying condemn the anarchists. Obviously, they're better than Zionists. But all right, I'll be right back. I really gotta pee, y'all. Give me like 10 seconds, then we'll defeat sin. That's kind of cool. Twitch updated their stream manager, so I can manage the stream right from my iPad here. The People's iPad, which has Midwestern Marx People's iPad engraved on the back. Because it didn't cost any money. I wouldn't have done that if it cost money. Oh. Anarchists shouldn't be seen as the enemy of the communists, but rather the stupid little brother that is really annoying. With time, they can be saved. There you go. That's true. Yeah, especially if you're talking like college anarchists, you know, who once they graduate, they're going to enter the working class and get more realistic. You know, people like that can be saved. A lot of times, you know, some of them can't, but when people go from ML to anarchist, that's really suspect. It's like, how? I know a couple of people like that, including people I like. I'm like, how did that happen? How did you buy into anarchy, or how did you understand Marxism, Leninism, and then become an anarchist? Like, did you start believing State Department propaganda? I don't know. Did you? It's like they almost had to be gaslit into giving up Marxism, Leninism, which people do try and do, and anarchists do try and do. You know, they gaslit the shit out of me when I first joined TikTok. You know, I'll tell you that Marxism, Leninism stupid, and the French theorists and the Frankfurt theorists are way more advanced, and Lenin and Stalin didn't understand Marx at all, and blah, blah, blah. And they never explain it, right? They never explain, you know, why Stalin's wrong or why Stalin didn't understand Marxism or Lenin, or not in a, you know, really expansive or concrete way. It's always just maybe they'll cherry pick a few quotes if you ask them to explain it. But it's just this like condescension of like Marxists, Leninists, Stalinists are stupid, you know, and the people who read French theory, the postmodern, oh, what the hell is this? The postmodern neo-Marxists, those are the real Marxists, the people who really understand theory. There's a ton of that attitude out there. And they basically just try and gaslight you into not understanding Marxism, Leninism. I mean, do you guys know what I mean by that? Do you agree? Have you seen this phenomena that I've seen? Dang it, he's immune to that? Come on. Orange doomed. I think they were never truly ML, and just like the aesthetic, and anarchism was very aesthetics heavy. Yeah, and I know someone who, though, they were an ML and then they became an anarchist and then they went back to being an ML, right? And now they're like, you know, a tanky. I agree with them on almost everything. And I'm like, how did that happen? How did you have an anarchist phase if you understand, you know, that most of the things we hear about socialist states are lies, and, you know, you understood dialectical materialism and stuff, and then you became an anarchist and then you went back to being an ML? What? I just don't get it. I do need to ask that person how that happened, because they're actually a good friend and they're a great comrade now. They do amazing work. All right, which way do I go here? Where are these? This way? I don't understand which way I'm supposed to go here. What the fudge is this? Do I have to grab this? What is going on? Oh. I had to get that, I guess. I'm trying to get rid of something that's useless. Whatever, we'll get rid of that. Dang it. What does ML stand for? Marxist-Leninist or Marxism-Leninism? What does it say? I use bad breath a third of the time. And I can't even defend against bad breath, can I? There's nothing I can do. He's just gonna confuse me. Except summon. I'm just bound to hit myself. That's why we need to summon. Anarchism is bad in theory and even worse in practice. Yes, couldn't agree more. I've had a lot of bad experience with anarchists online. I've never met one in real life. My brother's moving towards becoming a Marxist-Leninist from being a conservative. Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like, especially nowadays, with the conservatives being against the war in Ukraine and a lot of them not trusting Israel, which is a common thing if you talk to MAGA people every day, like I have a chance to, because of where I work and where I train. A lot of them are really skeptical of Israel, even though Trump is still quite pro-Israel. Zion Don, we call him. But what was I saying? A lot of them, with their criticism of the Ukraine proxy war and their the anti-establishment rhetoric of folks like Trump and even Marjorie Taylor Greene that they like, they're closer to communism and socialism than liberals, whereas liberals, you have some like real hurdles to get over if you want to convince them to become communists. And, for a lot of them, a lot of liberals, it's just not in their class interest, if they're rich libs. So same with rich conservatives, but what is this? What does the M do? MP, I don't need that. What's this? Speed, I need that. Nothing. Ooh, attack, let's go. I was an anarchist for like a month and a half. Then I learned that there is another perspective on communist theory. That's then what I was taught. Within a week, I was in ML and have been for 3 years now. Yeah, that tends to be how it goes. That's why I'm confused about people who are MLs and then become anarchists. Like once you learn it, usually there's no going back. Like you're like, okay, I understand it now. And I understand that socialist experiments weren't perfect, but they've been lied about and they did achieve all of these things. And I understand the Marxist-Leninist world outlook, and it helps me understand history and stuff better. So usually once you get it and start digging into the theory, there's no going back. Unless you get paid, unless you get bribed, Or unless you're actually like chasing power, like Mussolini, who started as a socialist. What up, champ? What up, Muhammad? How's it going, man? I'm having a good day. Killing this giant worm thing. It looks like the thing from what's that movie, Dune? Maybe I'll be riding this thing soon. Do I do more damage if I give him more money? I mean, Fidel Castro wouldn't be collecting money from the proletariat. So it doesn't really make sense that this... What I should have named this character who accepts your money before attacking is Deng Xiaoping. Because he was the one who went through with reform and opening up and said things like, to be rich is glorious. Doing good, brother. Just came back from wrestling training. Oh, badass. That's awesome to hear, Muhammad. I'm glad you're training. That's so cool to hear from another wrestler. How'd it go? A couple of my buddies and training partners have a tournament this week, and I don't. So I'm taking a little break from wrestling training. I've still been running and lifting, but it's good to have a little break every now and again. Trained really hard for the last tournament that I was in. Oh, dang it. This is hard. Oh, not this thing. Can I flee? I don't want to fight this thing right now. Aha! Suck it. What? Pick it up! What the... You gotta be kidding me. Gosh, we've been going for almost an hour. I thought we were just gonna beat Sin and be done. Stupid me. This might not even end up being the last episode. That was good damage. All right, hurry it up. At least these guys are easy. Good, nothing special. Just rolled with my buddies after training. Nice. Hey, man, have you watched Zizek on Piers Morgan? What are your thoughts in general? No. That might make a good reaction, though, even for a TikTok video. Is it interesting? Could you let me know kind of what they talk about and what Zizek says that you might want me to react to? What is this? Let me grab these things. Got one. Let's go. Mage's staff. Yes. Inventory full. Well, what do we get rid of then? We'll get rid of that. Yeah, what specifically did you think was interesting about Zizek Piers? Because that sounds like it would be worth my time to react to just because of who it is and what they, just because of who it is and how many people know about Piers Morgan and Slavoj. But I hate Zizek's politics, but I enjoy reading his books. Yeah, Carlos is the same way. I've never been like a big Zizek fan. I always just found him like, maybe this is mean and no offense, but I just found him really hard to listen to. I guess I could read his books, but I've since it's when he talks like this, it just drives me crazy. And I can't listen to it for a really long time, or it grosses me out. And also how he looks kind of grosses me out. I'm being so mean right now, but sorry, Slavoj. Maybe I'm shallow for that. There's nothing anyone could tell me to make me not ML. A few hours of history lessons from a Marxist perspective makes more sense than 12 years of indoctrination childhood ever did. Absolutely. Marxism helps you make sense of the world and actually understand history. and not just understand history as a bunch of isolated historical events. I always use World War One as the example. Like, I took classes on World War One, right? I studied World War One. I was super interested in it my whole life, but until I became a Marxist, I did not understand why World War One happened. I'm like, wait, there were all these alliances, and this duke got assassinated, and all of a sudden the entire world was at war. They couldn't stop themselves from going to war over this one duke getting assassinated. That just doesn't sound like reality. And then, of course, that isn't the whole reality. That, the Archduke did get assassinated, and that, was part of what triggered the war. But even more so than that, it was an imperialist war. It was a war between the imperialist countries for the colonies, for, to divide up the third world or the global south, and see who had the power to super exploit them. Right? That's what it was. It was an inter-imperialist conflict between all the capitalist countries. And when you hear that, it's like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, our government invaded Iraq and Libya and Syria for resources. I totally understand that, or I totally believe that countries would go to war with each other over resources and over colonies and over exploitation. That makes way more sense than, just thinking they tripped and fell and all of a sudden ended up in a giant world war because of this one duke who got killed. Which is how it's basically taught in the U.S., all the countries sort of just tripped and fell and they were in the war. Whoops. We're in a war now. The whole world's fighting now. Nice. LMAO. I haven't watched it, but apparently they talked about Israel, Hamas, and Putin. Oh, wow. Dude, then I'm sure there'll be stuff to react to. I mean, that's kind of what I figured that they talked about. But if that's the case, there's definitely stuff to react to, because Zizek's opinions on some of those issues are poop. I really want to hear what he says about Hamas. I really want to hear if he condemns them as terrorists. He probably freaking does. Well, I shouldn't jump to conclusions before I've even watched the video. Maybe he explains that Hamas are resistance fighters and that they're a legitimate political group, and that the reason why Hamas has so much support in Palestine is because, one, they're actually willing to fight for the Palestinians. They're actually willing to fight against colonization, whereas the PLO and the Palestinian Authority have been completely co-opted by the Israeli ruling class. It's a way for them to colonize Palestine essentially by remote control, by having Palestinians, sort of comprador class Palestinians, do a lot of the dirty work. But who did I? Someone was ready for an upgrade. I didn't do it. There we go. So, but also because Hamas did a bunch of social welfare programs, right? They tried to bring people food. They tried to build people housing. They tried to ingrain themselves in the community. Yes, as a political tactic to, gain support of the people, but it worked, and they were the only people really trying to do anything like that, or the only party really trying to do anything like that. And they gained the support of their people. They had to have their fight with Fatah, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what Zizek says. We'll see what the old trash panda has to say. Talking to the human croissant, Piers Morgan. The walking croissant. Oh. Do I have everything now, though? All right, we're just getting the hell out of here. Screw this. But yeah, Zizek's Russia takes have been trash. The trash panda pulled his Russia take straight out of the trash. For real. Frick. And that's what Gabriel Rockhill points out in his how's there a message in the private chat? Oh, what's up, Noah? You snuck in.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Good. I was just
I just
talking
took a break from writing and saw you were streaming, so I figured I'd see if you wanted some company.
for sure. One sec. Let me adjust the volume here.
Oh no, that's me. I was actually typing you a message. My mic is all messed up.
Oh, okay. Okay. How's it going?
Not bad. Healing. I can finally move without pain, so that's good, right?
Yes, definitely good. I
I
guess.
yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, I almost broke my neck a couple weeks ago. And so I've been kind of out of commission since then. But yeah, I started doing acupuncture. Uh,
Oh yeah,
it's
how's that working?
amazingly well. I didn't think it would. The first time I went there, like the rest of the day, the pain was super bad. But then the next day, it was like night and day, like 50% better, easily. What's really cool, it's this little Chinese place, right? It's I think the woman who owns this name is Gian Huan, right? And her daughter Lisa. And I walk in there and I'm wearing my Midwestern Marks hoodie, and the main woman, the mother, looks at my hoodie and she goes, "Oh, Karl Marx! They love Karl Marx in my country." I'm like, "Yeah, we love him here too."
That's awesome.
It was pretty cool. How you doing, brother?
Good, good. I'm glad to hear the acupuncture's working. We talked about that a lot, but you know the founder of Wikipedia who like denounced Wikipedia, that's one of the main reasons he says that Wikipedia is propaganda is because anything you read about like natural medicine or non-Western medicine is just trashed and poo-pooed as pseudoscience and bullshit, and it's not biased, or I mean it's completely biased. You're not getting objective information at all, or they're not giving you two sides of the argument. It's just this stuff is trash. Buy whatever pills the pharmaceutical companies are selling you.
Right. And yeah, who do you think is doing those comments and articles, etc.? You know, I think Big Pharma has quite a lot of money to pay for stuff like that. It's
Right.
wild, and it's not even just that. But I looked into acupuncture and how effective it might be, and that kind of thing. There's a very few studies on it here in America, shockingly, right?
Right.
Since it's not a pill they can sell us to prolong our misery and mask the symptoms. Um, but what few they have are show really, really, really good numbers on. It's like over an 80% success rate for less pain, less discomfort, all that stuff. Especially because my injury was on top of a herniated disc in my neck that I just live with from work anyway. So
Right.
it's kind of, yeah. What's wild is a guy who's a fan of our work sent me a thing, and he's the one who suggested acupuncture to me. So shout out to Red Sun. Thank you for that. He also suggested this thing they call pulsing, which is like they send little electrical impulses into the acupuncture needles with it. It's kind of crazy.
Oh
I was
yeah, yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, I was scared of it, and it was not all that scary at all. Actually, it was very cool.
No, it's not too bad. It helps too. You can feel the muscle loosening up and stuff. Um, yeah, it's interesting. That's one of the things I learned studying healthcare administration is like at every level of the healthcare system, the profit motive gets in the way of doing what's best for people, and that includes like the research. So the reason there's so little research about chiropractic care or acupuncture, these alternative forms of medicine, is because it doesn't make any money from the pharmaceutical companies. It doesn't allow them to sell any commodities or any surgeries. So it's not useful. And in fact, it would cut into their profits, right? Because if people could start feeling healthier from a little acupuncture, a little chiropractic, and changing their nutrition, though, then they don't need your pills. then
Yeah.
then what do they need the MD for, or the pharmaceutical company for? So all that stuff is sort of blackballed from medical research. And I mean, people are like alternative doctors. If you go visit them, they're aware of this, and some of them are overboard in how they crap on modern medicine, you know, and I agree with what Xi Jinping says in the governance of China, that we need a holistic approach to healthcare that encompasses Western medicine and, you know, traditional or you know, anti-establishment medicine for a lack of a better word. You should be able to go into a doctor's office and have, you know, chiro available, acupuncture available, and a medical doctor who can prescribe you pills if that's what you need also available, and it should all be covered under your insurance. Whereas right now, insurance will only cover, you know, very establishment, you know, Western mainstream healthcare. They're not going to cover, they'll cover some chiros, but not many.
Yeah, and what the really sad part is, I mean, if you think about it, like, Americans, we're not stupid. We know that our healthcare system is broken. All of us do, right? Nobody trusts the insurance companies. Nobody trusts the pharmaceutical companies. All of this, and then you get snake oil salesmen who take advantage of that, right? Too. So you always got to be really careful. And I mean, maybe it's a little tinfoil hat, but I would not be surprised if that stuff gets flooded in there just to confuse people, you know? When you don't know what's garbage and what's something real, it makes you kind of like stay away from the entire thing. But I'm telling you, Eastern medicine, traditional Eastern medicine helps. Even still in the morning when I wake up, I can't move without pain right now, right? And that lasted about an hour. And then after the acupuncture, it lasts like 10 minutes. And I can move around again. I mean, look, I wasn't able to do this before. I couldn't do this. It was crazy.
And if you went to the doctor, what would they do? Probably recommend either surgery or painkillers, right?
Yeah, and then me, I can't take painkillers, right?
Right.
I'm 18 years clean. I was addicted to heroin. So the urgent care doctor, she was like, well, is there a painkiller you prefer? I'm like, ibuprofen. You know, I'm not taking none of those. Sorry. And she recommended me a spine specialist, right? So I go to that woman, and she was actually really cool. She's like I see your notes on no opiates. Like, we're gonna do like we're gonna get you in physical therapy and do more active recovery for you. So I mean, that's my thing. You know, I'm all about it. And I've been the only really bad thing is I can't work out now, right?
Right.
I can't lift. I can't do nothing. And that's driving me crazy. But the PT, I get like supervised almost workouts. So it kind of replaces that a little.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like the same thing. And it's, you know, it's something that you can work hard on and focus on and improve on. So it's kind of like, you know, gives you the same feeling as working out. I know some people hate doing PT and they're just like, why can't I feel better right now? But it's so helpful.
It does. And they give you sort of like neat little tricks that help for pain. Like I have a like little bandana in my pocket right now because they teach you stretches, right? So you like put it around your neck and you stretch. And when it gets real bad, I do that. It opens my discs back up and I'm good to go.
Huh. One time my dad found his assistant wrestling coach, like laying on the floor because his back started spasming. He was down there for like 15 minutes. So I pray that I never get serious back and neck issues. I had one this year, like a pinched nerve or something in my neck. It disturbs how you sleep. It affects pretty much everything. So, and I thought it was interesting too. We had like it was like an academic, one of these academic Marxists who really likes French theory and stuff, saying that we aren't basing ourselves in the workers, or we're not basing ourselves in the proletariat. And I'm like, Noah's got a broken neck right now because he's in the proletariat, and you're sitting in your ivory tower telling Midwestern Marx that we're not connected enough to the workers. Like, we are the workers, at least Noah.
I mean, that's the majority of it. It's wild. It seems to me that there has to be some kind of like fantasy novel that they're writing about us, right?
Definitely.
and they sort of pass it around from him to that like Saturn guy and all of that. They all write little entries and make up these crazy fantasies. When it's like, we're right here, you can come ask us, right? Like, I'll tell you what I do for a living. It's not a big deal. And it's weird, especially with that guy. Like, every time he says something, I'm just like, why, man? Like, every time you do this and like try to lie about us, basically, and like talk about the evil Stalinists. The evil Stalinists say, you know what? Even though you're wrong, even though you're lying, why don't you just come with us instead and fight the ruling class together? If you say you're a communist, you say you're a Marxist, I don't get why you would be lying about prominent Marxists like that and attacking us. Wouldn't we all be stronger if we work together? And I think that kind of drives him insane. I don't know why, but it kind of does. So there you go.
It definitely does. You can definitely kill people with kindness. That's something I learned that from like playing online video games growing up. Like, you get these people who are raging at you, they're mad, and if you don't react, if you just don't get mad, they freak out even more, and they kind of don't know what to do.
Yeah, or if you're like, dude, that sucks.
Right.
Or like you commiserate with them, or if they're trying to like shit talk you when they like kill you or whatever, you just laugh and you're like, man, you got me. Like, it's like it changes the entire atmosphere and they get confused.
For sure.
It's how do we fall into this like primary atmosphere of adversarialism? It's so pointless. We have a ruling class that's genuinely destroying our entire country. We got bigger fish to fry than each other, you know?
Absolutely. Especially, I don't know. Some people are like Johnny Socialism or Andrew Saturn. Like, I hate even bringing too much attention to them, but I mean, that's what the gaming stream is for, is just gossiping sometimes. But like, you scroll through your Twitter and you feel bad for them almost, and you're like, how do you consider yourself a socialist, or how do you consider this to be useful for the socialist movement? Oh my gosh, I just got blown up. But like, for real, I wonder how some of them justify what they do to themselves. And I know Johnny is like, I'm doing research. He calls it research. Yeah, and it's like, Google, no, you're not, dude. You're just making up stuff in your head.
Right. Like, wild leaps of logic and Google searches is not research.
Right.
Like, I do too. I feel so bad for these people. And like, imagine their families, right? Like, how much time do they put on just trying to ruin people's lives that they've never met?
Right.
You know what I mean? Every time they do their little crazy fantasy novel, that's what I think. I'm like, where is your wife? Where is your kid? Like, even if you don't have kids, like your parents, your uncles, your aunts, like, isn't there something good with your time that you could be doing rather than like making up crazy conspiracies and trying to get people to believe insane things that they're not going to believe?
It's crazy how they've convinced themselves that they're actually advancing the class struggle. Like, oh, we're calling out these opportunists, and it just so happens to be anyone who actually gets popular spreading Marxism, right? Those are the people who are the LaRoucheite fascist opportunists, and they think they're helping the class struggle by calling these people out. It's like, dude, you're just creating an echo chamber and ankle biting anyone who gets popular and telling leftists, no, don't get on board with anyone who's actually popular and who's actually appealing to working class people with Marxist ideas. Those people are all fascists. Those people are all evil. And,
right. Dude, and most especially don't listen to what they actually say, because right. I know the crazy fascist, the LaRoucheite thing will sound silly, right? Where does the LaRouche thing even come from? Lyndon LaRouche is like this like fringe figure at this point that nobody cares about. The only time I ever hear the name brought up is by these rad libs who think it's like this insanely complicated conspiracy that all the Marxists are controlled by this guy, and it's wackadoo.
I don't get it. I didn't even really know who LaRouche was. I've never said anything favorable about him. I mean, I've had to research him a little bit because I've been accused of being a LaRoucheite so many times. Like, what? It has something to do with, like, you know, the Haas and Jackson and them went to a conference at the Schiller Institute one time, and now it's like anybody who associates with them, they call a follower of Lyndon LaRouche. Like, what the hell are you guys on?
Right? That's so weird. Like, we interviewed a Trotskyist. Does that make us Trotskyists?
Right.
It's so like it reminds me of like the sort of like conspiratorial crazy blog posts you used to see back in the early 2000s, when the internet was just first getting very popular, right? And people could start looking stuff up, and they all turn into Charlie on Always Sunny Philadelphia, and that meme where he's got the strings going everywhere and he's looking for God, what's the guy's name? I forget that, but yeah, it's like a famous meme at this point. And they're just the most spurious like, this guy met one guy one time, and then he is related to him, and don't you see, it's all controlled by Soros and LaRouche or whatever it is, you know?
Yep. Let's answer this question in the chat here. Right out the gate, since both you and Noah are here, I just purchased the classical text of Marxism by Riggins and Carlos's Dialectical Material Worldview book. Which to read first? It's probably a better question for Noah.
I would go with the Carlos's anthology first.
I like that one.
What it's going to do is, I love it. It's great. So Carlos edited this and put it together, right? For some reason in the West, there hadn't been an anthology like this before, which is crazy, right? It's all the texts on or passages, whatever, on dialectical and historical materialism from classic Marxism, right? Marx, Engels, Lenin. I don't remember who all's in it. I have it over here somewhere. If I can see, it might be in another room bookshelf, but oh, there you go. Eddie's got it. Oh, it's actually underneath my camera right now. Never mind. It's acting as a makeshift camera stand. But what it does is it's going to give you a good grip on the actual like primary source where all this stuff comes from. And Carlos's intro is going to help sort of contextualize that and give you a good sort of grounding in what Marxism actually is. Because here's the thing, coming out of the last period of American history, what everybody would tell you Marxism was wrong. I'm not kidding when I just say it's straight up wrong, right? They mistake a sort of reading of Marx, Engels, whoever, through the sort of ideological lens they already had. And so then they memorize everything, right? They pile memorizations on top of memorizations. They mistake that for Marx's worldview that he creates, right? Him and Engels. And they talk about how they created this. In fact, when Engels puts together Ludwig Feuerbach and the End of Classical German Philosophy, he says in the foreword that him and Marx throughout their life had always meant to go back and put together a book that described their worldview completely, right? But then Marx died. And finally, Engels later on had some time, and he was going over some notes, and he found Marx's theses on Feuerbach. And basically what he says is that we never were able to make this book about the dialectic and blah, blah, blah. But here's his notes, and here is where we are at, right? So he finds these notes. And he's like, when we were writing the German ideology, what the notes were for, we really didn't have a very mature worldview as of yet, right? So I'm going to write this book now, which is the End of Classical German Philosophy, and tell you how we got to where we are, right? And so that's in that book, right? Along with a bunch of other stuff. And so it'll contextualize all that stuff, and you give you a really good foundation in that dialectical logic, which is what we need for Marxism and to have a Marxist analysis of our own. And I know I'm rambling, so I'll give it back to Eddie. I just want to say one more thing before that. The distortions I was talking about a minute ago. Here's how they work. People look at a bunch of trees, right, in a forest, and they analyze a tree. Then they go to the next tree, analyze that tree. Then they go to the next one, analyze that tree. Then they count up all those individual trees and they call it a forest. That's empiricism, right? That's what we call a sort of like vulgar materialism, whatever you want to call it. It's not the dialectical view. The dialectical view of this forest must understand each individual tree as creating that forest and that forest as creating each individual tree. They're affecting each other. Each part of it affects each other part in a sort of ongoing developmental way, right? So one bush doesn't get as much sunlight because a tree is covering it, so it's stunted, right? That gives certain animals fruit to feed on or whatever. All of these things are connected and moving forward in history, and that is a dialectical view. Anyway, sorry for the ramble, Eddie.
Oh, you're good. I'm sorry, my controller is acting up. I was wondering why I couldn't skip that cutscene.
That's why you
So I
should
was
play
trying
with
to
a
figure
mouse
that
and
out
keyboard like
anyways.
a man. What are you doing?
No way. Not this game.
I can't do controllers. I really can't.
I can't do keyboards.
I have a cool little mouse. It's got like a bunch of buttons on the side. You see that?
Yeah.
So I got lots of like space magic powers in my games and whatnot. What game are you playing, by the way?
Final Fantasy X.
Okay.
Yeah, but to what you were saying, that I lost my train of thought now. Oh yeah, read Carlos's anthology, or his compilation of text. But I also recommend that everybody at some point in their lives read all 3 volumes of Capital, but especially Capital Volume 1, because like what Noah was saying, I just remember reading it for the first time and having all these light bulbs like, oh, I've been completely lied to about what Marxism is. And not just like in the way that you'd think, like, the ruling class saying Marxism killed 800 million bajillion people, Marxism evil, right? Like, obviously that's not true. But also like what leftists and anarchists and ultras had tried to say about Marx. I'm like, what they said isn't true, and I'm reading it right from the horse's mouth. Like, no longer, previously to that, I'd be like, I don't know who's right. I would have to weigh, people's arguments in my head. But once you read it from Marx himself, you realize that people are lying about Marxism, and they're giving you all these preconceptions and ideas about Marx that just aren't reality. And then you see like these ultras on Twitter who are, telling people like us we're not actually Marxists and we're the real fascists and stuff. It's like, you haven't read Marx. You haven't read Marx and Lenin. You call people who actually try to uphold Marxism and try to uphold Marxism, Leninism. You label them as fascists while calling yourself a Marxist. It's so ridiculous. But it's, once you read Capital, you have so much confidence to like combat these people and call out their bullshit, because you actually know what Marx thinks about everything, and you actually see him using the dialectical materialist worldview in action to make an analysis of the capitalist mode of production. So it helps more than anything. At the end of the day, it helps more than anything in understanding Marxism. There's a reason that he wrote it. So I just recommend people check that out. And also, I see people saying I should play Disco Elysium. I've gotten recommended that so many times now. So I think we might just have to do it.
My son's playing that right now.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he likes it. He likes it.
It was made by communists, I guess.
Interesting. I had no idea. He's digging it. But regarding Capital, yeah, it's our sort of number one text for a reason. Ilyenkov wrote his doctoral thesis on the dialectics within Capital, right? So how does Marx begin with concrete observations, sort of think his way through the abstract and back into the concrete? The entire process of Capitals 1 through 3 is an ascension from to the concrete, which is what Marx calls his method, and he talks about that, right? And Lenin says that that Capital is a sort of like brilliant exposition and proof that dialectics is material in nature, right? That it's inherent within nature and not just like an aspect of the mind or a thought device or whatever. That we see this is the way reality works dialectically and not metaphysically.
Absolutely right. You see it. It's one thing to like the German ideology does a good job of like outlining and explaining the theory and the dialectic, what we call a dialectical materialist worldview. But when you actually see it in action, when you actually see Marx using it to analyze the system, it makes a lot more sense. It really helps you understand what he was getting at, in my opinion. That's how I feel anyways.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it is hard to read, but it's also not like once you get used to kind of how he makes his arguments and how he lays them out, like, yeah, the first 3 chapters are hard, but after that, it's not that hard. He's talking, he's just showing how all the economic analysis that he makes is proven by what's going on in the factories. He's showing how there's material incentives for the capitalists to get their workers to work longer. Oh, damn it. This is so hard. This is a hard freaking level. He shows how there's always economic incentive for the capitalists to make their workers work harder and longer hours for less wages because of the way that will increase their surplus value and their profit. And then he shows how that's playing out in the factories, and how these capitalists are forming like basically lobbying groups to fight against the workers' unions and smash the workers' unions. And this is how he leads to his theory of class struggle. So the middle chapters of Capital are pretty easy, honestly, and very, I thought they were really fun to read.
Yeah, they get really fun, especially towards the end of Capital 1 and into 2 and 3. I think it's a lot more of a page turner, right? And Marx says that himself, especially especially those unfamiliar with what he calls his method of presentation, which is, again, the ascension to the concrete. The first section is going to be very hard to understand. And Lenin actually later on says that it's impossible to understand that first section without understanding Hegel's logic, right? Which is dialectical logic. And he uses that to sort of castigate all of the leading luminaries of Marxism of the last period and say they weren't even Marxists at all. And, the proof's in the pudding, right? As Marx used to say, well, he didn't use those words, but he would say the theory's only real when it grips the masses. And who won, right? It was Lenin and the Bolsheviks, not the social chauvinists of the Second International.
Right.
I started playing a new video game recently too, by the way.
What's that?
Helldivers 2. It's that
new
one where,
the one
like,
where you spread democracy?
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
fun.
what all my friends are playing right now.
Yeah, a guy at work sort of convinced me to play it. It's been all right. I was going to play Dragon's Dogma 2. But yeah, the spreading democracy and blowing up aliens sounded a little bit more fun.
It seems fun, honestly. A bunch of my buddies are addicted to it. I thought about playing, but
I usually don't get into online games because you have to put way more time than I have into them to be any good. Like the only people that are like really good at those are the ones that have like thousands of hours. And I'm like, dude, I cannot sit and play a video game for longer than like an hour, maybe 2 max at a time. You know what I mean? I can't. I just can't do it.
I'm already sick of this boss fight. I also keep dying, so.
Well, maybe you should install some mods so that you could like turn him into a train or something and just ride him away. Although
That
it doesn't
does.
look like you can ride him anywhere. It looks like you're in outer space.
Yes. You could get an outer space train though.
Yeah, you could do a space train. Why not? What's up with dude's overalls? Why is he wearing like? Is that the hero wears overalls?
Dude, are you not familiar with like Final Fantasy outfits?
I'm not. No, I
There,
mean, like overalls are a classic video game like hero outfit, though, right?
he's
Like
got a
Super
fanny
Mario
pack.
wears them.
Look at that. That's kind of drip.
My wife's got a pretty tight fanny pack as well.
The Final Fantasy outfits just have like way too many zippers. Like, look, that girl's in the back has a dress made out of belts. See that? It gets pretty wild. They all got spiky ass hair. Space
Yeah,
trucking like in Cowboy Bebop. It's a good show.
I don't do the anime art style. It's just not for me. But yeah, the spiky hair thing is kind of a kind of wild.
I can't believe I can't skip this cutscene. That is just outrageous.
That's frustrating. That I used to hate the ones that you couldn't skip when I played Elden Ring. And there's very few cutscenes in that game, but the ones that you can't skip annoyed me because you just like travel all over, cutscene, die, travel all over, cutscene, die, just over and over again.
Usually you can in this game. I don't know why. The hardest boss fight, it doesn't let you skip the cutscene right before it. It's like that doesn't.
Oh, is that like the final boss you're at?
Yeah. Well, we've been at the final boss for like 3 or 4 episodes now. It just keeps going. Like new guys keep showing up. Like right now, I'm inside of this giant whale called Sin fighting my dad. So we've had like 4 episodes here fighting the final boss, and for some reason, they make you watch the cutscene before the final boss, like the part where you're most likely to die and have to replay it. These bastards.
Yeah, that sucks.
I drove by their headquarters when I was in LA. Also, like Boeing and Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and all of these companies were surrounding this giant military base right in the middle of LA. I was like, oh, you can literally see how it works. It's the military industrial complex in front of my eyes.
Yeah, I never went out that way when I lived in LA. I lived kind of in the ghetto, so I always felt like I wanted to, but it's, what are you gonna do? I did spend quite a lot of time on top of a statue of a hot dog eating hot dogs. That was fun. That was like our weekend thing. We would go get hot dogs and then go sit on the hot dog statue and eat them.
Sounds like a thrilling hobby.
Yeah, Noah in his early 20s is a very stupid guy. So
simplistic linguistics says they didn't even try to hide it, just more convenient to be next door. That's hilarious. Like, yeah, they could just transport the missiles and bombs right over.
I wonder,
walk them across the street.
I wonder when it'll be that when we find out direct info on CIA involvement in video games and which ones are involved in now and movies and shows. I bet you it's almost all of them.
Yeah. Have you read Parenti's media book or the one on entertainment media?
The Inventing Reality on
No, he wrote a different one called Make Believe Media that's all about movies and games and TV shows. That one's pretty, I mean, it was written in the 90s, so it's a little out of date now, but that one's pretty interesting. And then Mint Press News found that Call of Duty is like basically the State Department's directly involved. It's basically, U.S. military propaganda or recruitment propaganda.
Which is wild to think about. That's what it made me think. Like, I wonder when we're going to find out what exactly they're involved in. It's got to be so much more than Call of Duty as well.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you. I think it's probably like beyond what a lot of us can even imagine or like are even thinking, because I mean, Parenti shows that in the 90s, like every major movie studio has basically a censorship board, and they've enforced anti-communist guidelines and They do it on behalf of all the major movie studios. So all filmmakers are, their hands are tied in the kind of political messaging that they put out. Not only do they have to make money with their film for the studio, but they have to, make sure everything passes the censorship board. And who knows how ingrained they've gotten. I mean, there's got to be some connection with the Marvel movies too, because if you watch like Iron Man 1, it's glorifying like a weapons contractor. That's the whole story.
Right. And then there's that stupid thing like calling Elon Musk Iron Man, and
right.
It's just ridiculous. It's sort of like the CIA was involved in every depiction of the CIA in popular culture back in the day, right? So it's like they're this very sophisticated organization that of all the whistleblowers we know, they exist to misinform people, right? Rather than how they portray themselves, which is like you've seen Homeland and stuff like that, right? Where they're doing these like drone strikes and they're always going after terrorists, and they're doing these like secret operations and turning people. And then there was a really good show about the struggle between the KGB and CIA called The Americans. And there's like a lot of like James Bond type stuff in that, but it's all just smoke and mirrors, man. They're more like constructing narratives, placing stories, getting people into news industries and TV studios and all that kind of stuff. A lot of them are nerds, right? It's not like it was in the 70s and 80s. Speaking of that, the show The Americans was fantastic, by the way. I loved that show. Have you ever seen it?
Mm-mm.
Dude, it's great. Do you know what Directorate S was?
No.
It was a KGB program to sort of have their own Americans, right? So they would send KGB agents over and have them live here as Americans. They never speak Russian again. They only speak English. They'd own businesses, have regular jobs, have kids, etc. And then the kids become naturalized citizens, right? And they would try to get them in with the FBI or the State Department or senators or congressmen and stuff. It was a real program, but a CIA agent that was involved in the task force assigned to Directorate S to try to find them wrote a TV show about it called The Americans from the point of view of the KGB agents. And it's really, cool. Really cool. It doesn't like, I mean, it gets a few things wrong about communists, but it gives a very, very human portrayal of them. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The one thing I really hate, though, is that it paints Gorbachev as like a very hopeful prospect for the world, and that wasn't true.
No, turned out to be false. That's interesting though. That sounds a lot better than shows like Homeland. When shows like that come out, I'm like, who's even asking for this? Who even likes these shows? I feel like these are literally just pumped out by the State Department or something.
Right? It's unreal. And there's a million of those. There was one.
Right, there's so many crime shows and, shows glorifying the police and the legal system or the so-called justice system. And, I get people like them. They've kind of got it down to a science, how to make these, make them into a mystery. But it's almost like the same thing every time. It's like the same plots over and over and over again. Someone commits a crime and then they got to figure out what the crime is. And there's drama, and they can be interesting, but I don't know, after 150 seasons of the same thing, I'm surprised people don't get sick of it.
Have you seen the one with the guy from Parks and Rec and the one Marvel series? Oh God, what was it?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that guy. You know who I'm talking about? Where he's like a Navy SEAL. It is the worst show I've ever seen.
Wait, he's a Navy SEAL? I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah, and he's like getting revenge from somebody who killed his family.
Oh,
And it's real bad, man. It's real bad.
that sounds terrible. Did John Krasinski, Jim from The Office, did a movie a while back where he was like a CIA officer in Venezuela overthrowing the evil dictatorship. And he was like putting out all these tweets. It was for Amazon Prime too. The movie was exclusive to Amazon Prime. He's putting all these tweets like, "Thank God for the CIA agents who keep us safe." Blah blah blah. Trump is such a piece of shit for hating on our wonderful deep state. And it's like, dude, this you can't tell me this movie was made by a normal person. This is a movie
Right.
made by the CIA and released through Amazon Prime. Like,
No
there's nobody
kidding.
who just, was like, I want to do a movie about overthrowing the Venezuelan government, where the people overthrowing the government are the good guys. And they're
Right.
Americans.
And let's get the bully on The Office to play the main character.
Right. Like, they couldn't find a better action hero than Jim from The Office. Like,
Right. Like his skill was looking goofy at the camera.
it's so stupid.
Oh God, that's so bad. Amazon Prime though, have you ever seen Comrade Detective?
No.
Dude. All right, do you have Amazon Prime right now?
I don't know.
It's worth getting just for this show. It's you remember that all the like sort of like big time Red Scare shows like or movies back in the 80s, Rambo and Red Dawn and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Well, there was a communist version of this, right? In the Soviet Union and Romania, etc. What they do is pretend that they found all the original tapes for a buddy cop show from communist Romania called Comrade Detective, right? And so and it's all fake, but they overdub voices, and actually Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec is in it, and some other stars. I think Channing Tatum is in it, but it follows two communist cops in Romania following around some a like smuggling ring that is smuggling drugs and other capitalist bourgeois stuff into the country, right? And there's this one really funny scene where they used a Monopoly board game, right? And like they're so puzzled as to what this is. They're like, "What is this?" And so they take it to the guy's parents who are in jail for being dissidents and being bourgeois. And they're like, "What is this game?" And like, "Oh, it's a children's game." And they're like, wait. You're telling me the entire point of this game is to impoverish your fellow citizens and own everything for yourself? What monster would make such a thing, right? And it's funny because that's actually true, right? Monopoly itself is bourgeois propaganda. It's teaching you to improve yourself at the expense of everyone around you.
I'm pretty sure it was made originally as a critique of capitalism, though.
I think it was.
Because the idea is that, through if you allow capitalism to play out, eventually one person monopolizes everything at the top. And owns all the hotels.
It's not wrong. The show is absolutely hilarious, though, brother. You'll love it. There's this one scene where, like one cop is like the loner who works alone, and he's very upset that the uptight guy gets made into his partner, right? So his the uptight guy is looking for him in the morning. He finds him passed out at a bar, and he drags him into the car. He's like, "Was it a late last night?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I met like these two women and blah blah blah." And he's like, "You need to get yourself together." And he's like, "Well, it's like Marx said, right? From each according to their ability, to each according to their need." And his brother's like, "I don't think that's what he meant." And he looks at a picture of the two girls. He's like, "I think that's what he meant." It's just so ridiculous, man.
All right, I'm giving up on this. I'm gonna come back to this later. I've been playing for too long. Thanks for hanging out, Noah. Appreciate it.
Anytime, brother. Yeah,
Peace, everyone.
I got a meeting with the production team. So adios.
Peace.